Thank you. Good evening. My name is Sean O'Rourke. I'm the chair of the Milton School Building Committee. With us tonight are members of the School Building Committee, and I will take them by a roll call vote as I see them on my computer. Starting with Betty.
Here.
All right, perfect. Glenn Hoffman.
Here.
Scott Tereshak.
Present.
All right. Mike Zulis.
Present.
Carrie Hurley.
Present.
And Selena Miranda.
Present.
All right, perfect. First thing on our agenda tonight is actually citizen speak. So what we do is we reserve the first 15 minutes of any meeting for a speaker to speak not longer than 3 minutes. So basically, if there's anybody in the public that would like to speak, if they could just use the raise the hand symbol, I'll call upon them and then we'll let them speak. So at this point, I'll just wait and see if anybody has their hand to be raised. And not seeing any. Perfect. So what we'll do is we'll move on. The next item on the agenda is the approval of meeting minutes that we have. I had just sent out before the meeting the copy of the minutes, Glenn, that you had forwarded to me before, and Carrie, the ones that you had sent previously. So, for members, what we'll do is table this, and those 2 minutes, we'll definitely vote on our next meeting, and then the remainder of the ones we'll hope we'll clear those up by then. The next on our agenda is essentially, old business, as we call it. And, the first part of the old business is update on Guile Road. And it kind of blends with the second portion of it, which are the BSC surveys, where we talked about entering a possible vote. From our last meeting, as everyone's aware, there were items that we needed updated by BSC group to get the accurate depiction of the parcels that we needed, essentially by adding the roadway into the parks parcel. And I have not received those yet from BSC group. So, at this point right now, we really, outside of what we discussed last time, which were the kind of schematics that I put over there with the theoretical, take backs of that acreage, we don't really have an update of that. I was hoping to have that to present tonight, but we don't. And partially with the the focus on this land swap, until we kind of get those final final plans from BSC group, I'm hesitant to enter into anything, asking everybody to vote on it until we kind of know what those were. Also with, town council, there has been the letter from the representatives of the lawyers that represent Home Inc. That essentially potentially could infer that there may be litigation at some point too. So making sure that we have everything kind of aligned properly is part of the reason I'm hesitant to kind of do a vote on schematic plans that we've received so far. So for me, that was kind of my update on kind of where we stand with the Guile Road proposal. And, I'll open it up to anybody that, has questions or comments or anything like that. And again, just use the raise your hand, tool if you'd like to speak. All right, and then seeing none. The next one is essentially an update of where we stand with Fontbonne. So essentially with Fontbonne right now, Fontbonne Convent, we have received a proposal from DRA Architecture to do sort of a pre-feasibility study to see what it would take to include a early childhood education center there. with 26 classrooms for preschool and kindergarten. So we received that quote for that. We're working it through right now to see if we can get that approved and get them going. All of that work would be done to kind of support the article for the February town meeting for us to purchase Fontbonn's Convent and convert that over to an early childhood education center. So on that agenda item, again, I'll open it up to anybody that has any questions or comments that are there. And again, please just use the raise your hand function. Seeing none. Well, there we go. Selena.
Yes, just a quick question in terms of that work. Is it strictly for early childhood, or are we sort of contemplating, I guess, the sort of other uses or other classroom configurations?
Yeah, good question. So for right now, for the scoping purposes for DRA, we've asked them only to look at an early childhood education center. Some of the other things that we talked about as far as like temporary fixes of, you know, I know at one point we talked about utilizing the space without doing like a major addition to it and stuff. We, for lack of a better word, we've abandoned that right now just to kind of give a distinct focus of like what we would build there if we were to buy it. Okay. And Scott, you're next.
I was going to ask the same thing, just to understand the scope of the services and the potentials for the building a little bit better, but I get it now. Thanks.
Yeah, and I apologize. I would have had that deeper as an agenda item, but we had received that that scope from them late on Friday, and I'll forward that over to everybody so they can actually review what the scope of services are. It's a tough thing with scheduling these meetings. Anything that comes up by the time I publish the meeting to the time the meeting actually occurs, it makes it really difficult to kind of dive into the details. So, but at some point in the near future, we'll probably have to call a meeting to review that scope of services and actually approve it by a vote. So, yeah, probably right after we get off this call, I'll forward all that over to everyone. I apologize for not doing it earlier. Yeah, Carrie.
Just a quick question on funding. Is this considered a school building project, school building committee project, or is this also going to be part of the school committee short-term or long-term solution bucket?
So very good question, because we're kind of working in tandem with everyone for funding on this, of looking at potentially splitting the bill a little bit, from the remainder of funding that we have left over, because the current amount requested by DRA kind of eclipses what we have for available funding. But there is some talk of utilizing school funding for it also. The cost that DRA came in at was $18,500. We do have some money left over until DRA submits their final invoice. I'm not really sure on the total amount there, but we don't have a total of 18.5 available. So what we're looking to do is either pair with the school committee or pair, in conjunction with the school committee and select board to find that funding to do it for that.
Thank you.
Yep. Yep, Mike.
Sean, do you want to just lay out what this all means for February in town meeting?
Yeah, good point. So, partially holistically from the previous agenda items that we talked about, with BSC Group not essentially being able to provide us, documents at this point. My take is, for February town meeting, we probably can't have the Gow Road proposal as an article at the February town meeting. That we'd only be having Fontbonne Convent purchase as an article that we would be proposing for a town meeting. The reasoning for that is, the Gow Road, documents that we're lacking right now. We were hoping to kind of have them in November to line up, for us to do enough, digestion of that to vote on one first, and then further to take that, approved one from school building committee or whatever option we decided on, and then working through, public comment on that, to walk people through it. At this point right now, we're at December 12th and we don't have those final documents. So it's just kind of pushing us off. So my take or my suggestion right now would be, come February town meeting, we would only be going for the Fonbon option, Fonbon convent option. And, the Gow Road one would probably have to lag and go into May's town meeting. And Mike, you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I was just going to add one additional fact that you may have mentioned, but because of a related article, it may be on the docket for February town meeting, and that is the treasurer article. It was reported to the select board last week that in order to do that, we would have to move the town meeting back from February 27th to February 13th. So that cuts the time frame back. The reason for that is because that vote, if we go down that road, that vote on the treasurer issue has to be 60 days before an election, and February 27th wouldn't be 60 days before. So that's why we may end up pushing forward that town meeting, and that makes it even more difficult with the delay on the BSC group.
Yeah. I definitely forgot about that one. I didn't mention it, but yeah, that is an additional one that's out there right now. So essentially for members of the school building committee, I just want to make everyone kind of aware of that also. Essentially holding on some of that stuff now. Our kind of upcoming meetings over the next couple of weeks. My guess will be focusing, specifically on Fonbon convent, and working towards that article in the February town meeting to figure out exactly what we're building there, which is why we're bringing DRA on board, and what the costs of that would be. And then, presenting, a full-fledged article, for the town to digest and vote on, whether that's the option they want to pursue or not. So, for me right now, that's kind of where my focus is going to be turning. And then, for example, if Fonbon does not pass, then it's, we'd be focusing 100% on Gow Road, for a Maytown meeting. So, for us right now, that's kind of where I see us sitting for most of our stuff. So, and again, I'll open that up to anybody that has any, questions or comments or anything like that. Seeing none. So kind of ties in with the next thing for old business. Special town meeting in February 2023. As Mike mentioned, the timeline for that has been pushed up for a related article. So, by doing that also, it kind of pushes some of the other stuff that we had that was kind of getting squeezed in there. So, again, by stripping Gow Road out, focusing on Fonbon, it gives us kind of, a singular thing to focus on for February town meeting. So with that, I'll kind of close the agenda on old business. For new business, we have to start thinking towards May for the May town meeting. And the reason we need to is the articles that are due for the May town meeting, actually, the craft of them, or the initial articles, Mike, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, they're actually due in January, right? That's the email that Lynn sent out. So
Yeah, I think that's right.
yeah,
January 11th.
yeah. So for us, we need to be forethought, thinking ahead for options, essentially, one that we've discussed a number of times of like just, creating new funding source for the school building committee, because, we've expended all our funds over the past 4 years, which we've been very good with. I think that's one article, but the other ones come in of, for February town meeting, if FOMPON were to pass the convent, we're going to need funding for architectural engineering services come May. And, we'll have to start thinking of, estimated costs for those, what exact services we're going to want. And most likely it's going to be full, architectural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, engineering services to construct the program of what we define. The other part of it too is that if FOMPON does not, or the FOMPON convent option does not pass, what does that article look like for Gow Road? So, at this point, the Maytown meeting becomes really critical because we need to understand what we're doing in January to prep us for May, so we're not chasing a lot of stuff then. So, I open it up for any, topics, any discussion or comments or anything like that. Yep, Mike.
I was just going to say, it sounds like we'll need to go on parallel tracks, at least in planning for May, planning for a FOMPON track and what we need for that, and then planning for Guile Road track and what we need for that, and then depending what happens in February, we can always pull back one of the articles.
Yeah, I agree. And Glenn.
As far as the request for additional money goes, at this point, by January 11th, all you need to do is really request the supplemental appropriation language the town council has to see what sum of money the town will appropriate to supplement the appropriation of the school committee under blah, 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 school building committee under blah, blah, blah for. And really, that's the only language you need for the 11th is to get that article in there. We have time, well, not a lot, but some time after that to talk about, what the sum of money could be. But as long as it was if we keep it broad enough, as long as within the scope of the original authorization for the school building committee, you could send that money in different ways. So you don't have to get too specific by the 11th of January anyway, but we'll have to get specific after that.
Yeah, and I only bring it up just, I think, for at least for me, I'm getting smarter as I'm getting, through some of these things of, May sounds like it's a far time away, but when you realize January 11th is basically right around the corner, yeah, I agree with you. Like just getting a framework for the articles that we need and stealing any like language that's already existing for stuff like this is my plan. And I put it out there mainly too for if there's something else that I may be forgetting or something else that, an additional article that we may need to do. You still have your hand up, Glenn.
Yeah, I was going to raise it again. I have the language from previous school building committee reauthorizations as well, so I can send them to you so you can see what it starts with. Then, of course, Kevin Freitag is the one who drafts it, but I can show you what it looks like from past school building committee because I think we did God knows how many supplemental appropriations on that plan over the years. But between 2001 and 2003, there are several of them, and I have all the warrants because I was here then. So I'll send you over the language that was used then.
All right, perfect. Thank you. So essentially for that, I think that's the only thing else we had on new business. I didn't know if anybody else has any other further comment or anything that's on there. Not seeing any. All right. Excuse me. So I had a tentative next meeting for us, and again, I was keeping it as next Monday, the 19th, and I was doing that more so for the services that we just received from DRA. That potentially we may need to have a vote on that. So for now, I just want to check with everyone that next Monday night, again, for hopefully for a quick meeting similar to this. Just to formally get together and take a vote on DRA's services once we figure out a funding source for them all, that it works for everyone there too. So for everyone, if you could just keep next Monday night open if that's possible. Outside of that, I believe that kind of concludes the agenda that we had for tonight. So fast and efficient as best we can. With that, I'll entertain the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. And do we hear a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, perfect. All right, we'll go through a roll call vote. Scott?
Yes.
All right, Mike Zulis,
Yes.
Carrie Hurley,
Yes.
Selena Miranda,
Yes.
and Betty White,
Yes.
and Glenn Hoffman.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Thank you all very much, and see you next week.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Have a good night.
You.